Hello and welcome. I am Lucinda Curran, your host for the Environmental Sensitivities Symposium, a world-first event. Today I have the pleasure of introducing you to Girish. So Uma, would you like to tell us about the work that you do?
Sure, Lucinda. First of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity. I love talking about my work because it inspires me and fills me up with joy, the opportunity to touch people's lives in a way that makes a difference to them, to their healing. That brings me a lot of joy. So to answer your question, I'm a grief guide, a certified dream coach, and an award-winning author. But I wasn't always, in the area of grief healing. I came to it because the universe opened those doors in 2010. My mother passed away 8 months after we moved to the States, which was in 2008. We had only been here, like I said, 8-9 months, and I have lived all my life in India before that. So moving here and not having friends, not knowing how to drive, it just compounded the intensity of my grief. It was a very lonely time in my life. I was broken. I was in a lot of emotional and spiritual pain because I felt abandoned by God. I didn't know why this had happened. I sort of clung to my faith and believed that my mother would be part of the survivor statistic. That was not to be. So I spent a long time being angry and confused, being very, very sad, crying torrents of tears. And then I picked myself up and started on a quest. This was a spiritual quest which sort of grabbed hold of me with a fierce urgency. I woke up to the big life questions. Why am I here? Who am I? What is the meaning of life? And what am I meant to do with this life? It was like I just couldn't rest until I found the answers to these questions. So I began to read voraciously. I began to work with spiritual teachers and mentors. I took workshops. I listened to everything I could, which spoke to me what the truths of life and life purpose were all about. So I embarked on this magnificent journey. It felt so meaningful because my soul was really ready to hear these answers. And when I got some clarity around that, when the answer spoke to my heart space, I knew then that this is what I was meant to be doing with the next chapter of my life. I knew that I was meant to use my pain as a platform to serve. And that's how I came to be a grief guide. I got my certification in dream coaching, which is about the dreams that people have when they're wide awake, not nocturnal dreams. So this is the dreams that you have about who you want to be in the world, how you want to serve, what makes you feel joyous, what is meaningful to you. So I help people connect with that part of them and help them move on to a life of purpose and passion and joy.
That's an incredible story. Losing your mother basically set you on this journey, is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. When we moved to the States, I had no clue that I was going to be working in the area of grief healing. I didn't know anything about grief or death except for having lost a couple of grandparents, and I had mourned them, but, life moves on, and you carry on with what you have to do. I was busy. All those years in India, I was a young wife and a mom, just taking care of family and discharging my responsibilities. I didn't have time to sit and think about these big life questions, and it wasn't the right time, clearly.
That's just so interesting. And so some of the questions, the big life questions that you're referring to, what are some of those?
The questions that came to me soon after my mother passed were, who am I? And that started with, she's dead and gone. So what is life all about? I mean, we struggle and we survive. We pay the bills. We get an education. We get degrees. We get jobs. We raise a family. We get old and we die. And to me, it seemed like there was more to this than meets the eye. I knew there was something more that I wasn't aware of, that I wasn't understanding. And to me, that was, who am I? Why am I here? What is the meaning of life? What am I meant to do with this life? Is there more to life than just struggling and surviving? What is the purpose of my existence? So these were like big existential questions that I was asking. And that spiritual urgency was clearly triggered by my mother's passing.
Before you mentioned about dream coaching, and these aren't the sleeping dreams, it's the awake dreams. And I'm guessing that is, just really a part of what you're doing is living and following your dreams. Would that be right?
Oh, yes, absolutely. When she passed away, I realized that we don't have all the time in the world to get clear about why we're here. So if there's something we are passionate about, if we have a dream that we want to fulfill and make real in the world, then we better get about the business of making it happen right now, because we don't know what's waiting around the corner. So that sense of urgency only happened in my life after I lost my mother, and I realized that we can't just walk around taking our lives and the moments we have for granted. Because when we left India 8 months before my mother passed, there was absolutely no indication that she was going to die 8 months later. So in that short period of time, life just shifted, everything changed. And it brought home to me this reality that life is not a constant. Life is not to be taken for granted. The todays we have are meaningful because we are meant to make them work in favor of our passions. It's not something that we put away for some distant future when we have the time, we have the money, when we have aligned with everything we think or believe we need to make that dream happen. We do what we can with what we have right now, right here. That was a very important message that came to me when my mother passed away. So there were many beautiful lessons that her passing taught me. And it was in moving from a space of grief to the space of what were the gifts that the grief of her loss brought me that then determined the next chapter of my life.
And so the work that you do now is really helping people a lot with grieving. And so how do you help them most?
Well, when people are grieving, it seems like, swimming upstream. It seems like you're drowning in a sea of pain. You can't, you just feel helpless. You're despairing. You're missing your loved one, and life is difficult. In the early days of grief, you just can't even get out of bed or take a shower. These simple tasks of daily living become absolutely impossible for many people that I know. And so one of the first things I do is help them believe that if I can heal my pain and complete the unfinished business of grief and live a life of peace and meaning and joy, you can too. Because I believe that we are all part of the one divine soul. So someone who has been able to heal herself from a very dark, despairing place can serve as a model for those who are in that same place today. So I show them that, transformation is possible, that you can be in a very deep pit of despair, but you don't have to live there for the rest of your life. It's just a phase of your life, and there's a reason why you're there. So I help them see that grief is something that they need to heal, and by asking the right questions about what it is that's calling to be healed in them, they can then move from that place of grief to a place of purpose and meaning and joy.
And I know another aspect of your work is to do with unfinished business. So could you tell us a little bit about that as well, please?
Sure. A lot of people struggle with what remains unfinished when they lose a loved one. What happens is we go through life being busy 24/7, and we don't really reach out to the people that we love. We think we have tomorrow or next month or next year. We'll take that vacation with our family when we have the time and money. We've had a rift with a sibling, and we haven't bothered to patch that up because we feel, well, let her make the first move. I didn't do anything wrong here. I'm right. So we have all these little pieces of unfinished business, which then, if something gets in the way, let's say there's an accident or a terminal illness and our loved one passes away, that unfinished business causes an immense amount of pain. These are the regrets and the guilt feelings that we carry as a burden for the rest of our lives. So a lot of the work that I do with my clients relates to the unfinished business of their lives, the unfinished business they have with loved ones that have passed away. So I help them heal this, because until you heal your unfinished business, it doesn't matter if your loved one isn't here today. If they've passed over, that's all right. You can still make peace with it, because the realm that they are in is a realm of unconditional love. There is only forgiveness, there is only joy, there is only peace and love. So it is possible for you to connect with them and complete what remains incomplete. So that's a big piece of work that I do, completing forgiveness issues, saying I love you, or communicating appreciation for your loved one, which you didn't do while they were still here. This is some very important work that I help my clients do as a way to find peace and sort of tie up the loose ends that they had with their loved ones.
It's very important stuff. To finish off this part of things, I need to ask you, in terms of environmental sensitivities, a lot of people are grieving for the loss of their lifestyle, a loss of health, well-being, vitality, even grieving the distance it creates with loved ones or friends. Is this the same sort of grieving as when you lose a loved one?
I think all pain is the same. This kind of grief is a little different from losing loved ones, because when we lose a loved one, we miss their physical presence in our lives. And there's a lot of sadness and anger and guilt around that. The pain that people experience when a body part fails them, or when their health fails them, is a little different. It's the loss of self in some way. It's the loss of self-esteem. It's the loss of the dreams that they've had. You know, everyone has a dream about what they will do and how they will live their lives. Some people want to travel, some people want to, hike and take trips. Some people want to write books. Some people want to do photography. And when there's a problem with their health, those dreams get compromised. So yes, there is grief when a dream is compromised. In fact, I teach this whole piece of work, which is grief is the death of a dream. Essentially, when your body doesn't support you, you feel a loss of self, and you do have to grieve that. So I would say there is pain in that, but then you have to reframe that loss in a way that's meaningful. I would love to share a quote here by Rachel Naomi Remen, which says, "Sometimes healing isn't so much about getting better as about letting go of everything that isn't you, all the expectations, all the pain, and becoming who you really are." So I just feel that sometimes the bodily manifestation of pain and limitation is about the need to let go and heal what's calling to you from your soul. And if you can get to that place of healing by really asking the questions, what is my body saying to me about this? Why have I been chosen to experience this limitation? What are the lessons that I'm meant to learn? And the answers to those questions can move you from a place of grief to a place of wholeness of spirit, because even if the body isn't whole, the spirit is whole. And I think that when the body's health is compromised, it's an invitation to you to live from your whole spirit.
That's so amazing. So Girish will be a speaker at the Environmental Sensitivities Symposium. You can find out more at environmentalsensitivitiessymposium.com.